What's up, ladies and gents? Welcome to the Go Long Podcast. I'm here with my good pal Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. You may remember him. You've popped on the pod
Couple
once or
times.
twice.
Yeah, a couple
Yeah.
times.
We need to know something about the Chicago Bears. We go to this guy right here, who I've known for many years and
Many
have
years.
attended many a combine with.
Yeah.
And to really break in combine week, we made our pilgrimage to Kilroy's last night,
That's
which
right.
was great.
We can't tell all the combine stories. You told me that those were going to be on the super down low, but there's been probably 12, 13 years of experience down here, hasn't there?
If you saw a cross section of like the nightlife at the combine for us too, it would get a lot lamer by the year, wouldn't it? I mean, I think
Yeah. I mean, old age and parenthood is
yeah,
cutting into some of the fuel tank, I guess is how you put it.
exactly. It's like you're not around the kids, so it's a good week to maybe grab a couple hours of sleep that you otherwise would not get. But
Love this week. There's always an energy here. There's always people to talk to. There's always things to learn. It's a good week. You leave exhausted, but most of the time, you leave feeling a little bit energized as well. And as weird as that is, exhausted and energized, but it's always good reconnecting with you as well.
I totally agree. I mean, we're in the convention center right now recording this, and if you're watching, you might just see a GM or a coach or a scout like literally walk right behind us because the whole NFL world is here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the majority of fans really understand why so many media members go to the combine. It's yes, there are 40s and broad jumps and verticals and everything that the NFL network is broadcasting, but we're here. Most people are here because all teams are here.
Right.
Not all coaches now, but like this is an opportunity to
It's a
really
one-stop
figure out.
stop for information, and it's such a hive, and there's so much happening here. And even this week, just for me, there's so many different people you can talk to, coaches, executives, agents, and you wind up with a snapshot where the information that consistently overlaps, you go, okay, like this is something I need to look into more. And then the stuff that's on the outliers, you say, okay, I got to double check this with someone else. And it's so easy to find someone. Where I'm coming from, Tyler, in Chicago, many years we've come down here and the Bears have been so irrelevant that trying to get anyone to weigh in on what the Bears are going to do or what they're up to has been really difficult. This is a whole different world I'm in right now. The Bears have the number one pick. They've got a quarterback for sale in Justin Fields, and you've just got a ton of curiosity with people all around the league looking to feel you out for what you think is going to happen, and then obviously offer their opinion on what they think should happen. And so it's been interesting.
It is the week of the Chicago Bears. You're absolutely right. What an interesting team at a fascinating time. That's why we're talking to you, Dan. I no, I guess none of us really know what the hell they're going to do, but it's safe to say Justin Fields won't be the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, the Chicago Bears, right?
Yeah, he's
He's
definitely not going to be
definitely
the
not for the
quarterback for the
Bills,
Buffalo Bills.
right?
Is my understanding that the Bills are very happy with what their quarterback situation right now and
I'd
not
say
looking
so.
to pivot. I would find it hard to believe that Justin Fields would be your starter in week one. I think the Bears came down here with a hope of trying to identify who some of the suitors would be as a trade partner for Justin Fields. And then obviously a lot of their homework revolves around, is Caleb Williams the undisputed number one prospect in this class in terms of how their draft board is going to be ranked? Or are there some things there that concern them that would cause them to pivot in another direction with these other draft eligible quarterbacks, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, guys that would be on their radar if Caleb Williams is not the guy. So it's a fascinating time for them to start that process. I think and it's worth reminding the audience that this is just the starting point for the character homework, right? You get your 18-minute meeting as a team with a quarterback down here, and then you're looking to take that information and push it forward into the pro day, the private workout, the personal visit, the trip that the prospect will make to your campus. And so there's a lot more ahead in gathering the information on these players and these prospects to put yourself in position to make an educated and well thought out decision.
You know what blows my mind with this situation though is like you want to do right by Justin Fields, and Ryan Poles talked about that with you
Use those
guys.
words, yeah.
This is a quarterback who's been through a lot in 3 seasons,
Right.
10-28. He's been cheered. He's been booed. I mean, I've heard that the majority of Bear fans would want Justin Fields as their quarterback, which is wild when you think about where he was at various points. So if you want to do right by him, that's great, right? Being a player-friendly podcast. I mean, these are the guys risking their brains and their bodies out there. But there is a team element here where if you want to get the absolute most you can for Justin Fields, it behooves you as the Chicago Bears to have the other 31 teams thinking he might be your quarterback.
Well, it
But
also,
you got to be honest
yeah.
with Justin Fields too. And so when you're having those private conversations, can you be like, Justin, here's where we are, but let's all kind of play coy here. And they didn't really do that this week in Indy. He
One,
was pretty upfront with the public, Ryan
one
Poles.
thing I appreciate about Ryan Poles is his candid nature and his want to just be able to be upfront with people. As it relates to Justin Fields, you don't have full control of that situation. As he talks about with free agent deals, it takes two to tango. And so you might want to have a deal done tomorrow, but the team you want to have the deal done with isn't ready to get there yet. And so you're not in full control of that. And just being able to have that back and forth relationship with your current quarterback, Justin Fields, and his camp is, I think it's important to set a tone for the rest of the building and the other people that see your actions and they feel your sincerity and you build up trust with your building when you're able to try to do right by people you respect. Listen, Justin Fields' play has not reached a level of acceptability in terms of keeping him around as your answer at that position if you want to go and win championships. But the way he's handled himself for 3 years, the thick skin he's had, his ability to handle criticism, his ability to galvanize the locker room, those things aren't in question. And Ryan Poles truly and sincerely appreciates that element of who Justin is. And so he does want to do right by him because he appreciates all that Justin has given him, even though the results haven't turned out the way both sides would have hoped they would have. Because had they turned out that way, Ryan Poles is holding an auction this week for the number one pick that they got from Carolina, and he's getting 5 or 6 picks for the next 3 years to build a roster any way he wants to.
It's such a people business. I mean, when you hear DJ Moore and so many of these players vouching for
Yeah,
Justin Fields and say they want him back, you got a team wrong. Like you
you're
got to
right,
do
no
what's
doubt.
best for your team while also knowing you've got a locker room full of players that are watching your every move and how you deal with this seminal moment in franchise history. All Ryan Poles really needs to do is take all of those qualities inside Justin Fields, like the
No
ability
doubt.
to handle adversity, and then somehow put like that brain inside of Caleb Williams.
Look, I've talked about it now for a while that not just quarterbacks, like humans. If you could take Justin Fields' thick skin and his ability to handle criticism, his ability to be very, very even keeled through the highs and the lows. It's truly impressive. I would borrow it for my own personal life. I'm 20 years Justin's senior, and I could use some of the composure he has in stressful moments. And so you do appreciate that. If you could check those boxes for Caleb Williams and then pair that with a skill set that everyone around the league, when you do the talent evaluation of Caleb Williams, are there concerns? Sure. They're minimal, and the glowing traits at the top of the scouting report tell you 100% this guy has the high level playmaking ability, the artistry to be a championship quarterback, right? And so you check those boxes and then you say, okay, now in this next period of the evaluation process, as we get in front of him, as we get to be in the same setting as him, we got to feel out what he's made of. What are his motivations? What is his personality like? Does he have the things that can truly create that engine for your building because you know it as well as anybody. This is a quarterback driven league. Those guys are the engines of championship runs, and you want to be able to identify that in the next guy you pick.
That's where I'm trying to figure out who is that suitor for Justin Fields because Atlanta,
Yeah.
we talked about this with Jim Monos last week. They had their shot at Justin Fields and said no to the hometown kid. Pick
Right.
Kyle Pitts. Terry Fontenot, the GM's still there. Their evaluations, how those really changed with what you've seen in Chicago, I'm not really sure. Pittsburgh, Vegas. Do you think there is a robust market?
I do not. I do not. And that's hard for a lot of people to understand because they've seen the Justin Fields highlight reel. They see the place he's capable of making and they go, well, somebody's going to want this guy.
I know
But
it.
then you go case by case. Somebody told me in the early parts of January, just go division by division, team by team, assess their quarterback position, and then say, if you were in the chair of the general manager in that building, would you be knocking down the door at Hallis Hall to say, hey, can we get Justin Fields? And when you do that exercise, you just named 3 teams that are probably at the top of the list and have their own significant reservations about Justin Fields. Luke Getzey's the offensive coordinator in Las Vegas. That didn't work out in Chicago the last 2 years. You would expect both
That's
Luke
right.
and Justin to want a new setup. In Atlanta, Zach Robinson was hired to run a Sean McVay style offense. Luke Getzey was running a Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur style offense for 2 years in Chicago and was skewered by people in Chicago for not running a system that fits Justin Fields. So now you're going to ask your new offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, to try to reconfigure things in a way that he's not going to be comfortable with running an offense that doesn't necessarily marry up with the skill set of Justin Fields. And then in Pittsburgh, I think the things you're hearing around the league is that they may not be done with Kenny Pickett yet. They want to give him a crack with Arthur Smith as the new play caller, give him a new lease on life, and find out like the Bears did a year ago with Justin Fields. Let's give it one more third season run to see where you can take your game and go from there. And so it's going to be very interesting in the next couple weeks, the next month, to see what kind of market materializes for Justin Fields.
I forgot about the Getsy
Yeah,
dynamic in Vegas. That's such a great point. Really, it hit me again listening to Sean Payton yesterday, and he was so honest, strikingly honest on many subjects. But he's absolutely right when he says you have to win from the pocket. In the
oh yeah,
NFL, I mean, you still have to win from the pocket, and you were in that room listening to Justin Fields. I forget which week it was. It was
I
a
can
month
tell you
into the
exactly what
season.
week it was.
He
Week 3.
basically said, I got to say F it and do my thing. And he won that battle. I mean, he started to
Temporarily, yeah.
temporarily. Clearly, the plans that were in place to have him operate within the pocket were thrown out the window or didn't work.
Well,
And
yeah.
so 38 starts in, he's not going to become that anywhere.
No, and the numbers, you talk to people around the league, the things that are most damning for Justin Fields is the fourth quarter numbers. I've given this stat in Chicago 100 times. He's had 23 drives in the final 8 minutes of a game with the Bears having a chance to go tie a game or take the lead, and he's led scoring drives 3 times. One of those was a 4-play, 0-yard field goal drive after a Roquan Smith interception to beat the lowly Texans 2 years ago. So you're not seeing this level of game on the line mastery that you need to go to the next level with your team as a quarterback. That's a big problem. Justin Fields has been in Chicago now for 51 Bears games. He has missed 11 games due to injury or illness. He has won 10 games. So over 3 seasons, he's been more likely to miss a start than to win a start. We're too deep into a career to still be going, oh, maybe, just maybe, if everything is perfect around him, he'll suddenly hit this magic springboard and break through the portal into some new realm that we haven't unlocked before. That's hope-based optimism that isn't rooted in the reality of what you've seen and the evidence-based stuff that you've seen. Justin Fields' flashes are intoxicating. They're beautiful to watch. The results, game in, game out, over 38 starts for 3 seasons, they're not there. And so as a general manager, you have to take a sober look at it, particularly if you're a general manager like Ryan Poles, who wasn't there when he was drafted, and you say, I need to go down with my own guy, right? And this is the opportunity, rare as it is ever going to be, to pick not only at number 1, but to pick at number 1 in a draft that is very loaded at the quarterback position. And at the very top of that list is a guy that people have been looking forward to entering the draft for 3+ years, in Caleb Williams.
I want to ask you about Caleb Williams. Lastly, on Fields, the other important thing to remember too is he's going to get paid soon. You would think
Right. No,
whoever
right.
trades for him is under the assumption that you're going to pay this guy a lot of money. I mean, you're not just signing up for this year; you're probably signing up
Well, and
long
that's
term.
right. So that's where what does it cost to get Justin Fields? It's going to cost you a draft pick that you're going to send to the Bears, and then you have to make a decision. What are you willing to reward him with financially? He's entering the final year of his rookie deal. You've got until May to exercise his 5th-year option. That's going to come in around $25 million, fully guaranteed for 2025. Are you ready to make that commitment on a 2-year trial run to a guy? It's not a huge commitment, but it's enough to say that the next 2 years are his show for us. And so that some teams got to be in a position to allow that to play out. If you're going to trade a draft pick away and just give him a 1-year tryout, you're probably not going to bring him in to be your undisputed starter. You're probably going to put him in a competition, right? And make him earn his job. So interesting dynamics at play there. And that's all part of this. There's a business element to this that these general managers all have to navigate. Hard to surf sometimes, and you got to figure that out.
So that's the thing. Like when you say, well, Pittsburgh Steelers would rather see what they have in Kenny Pickett another season and maybe bring in some competition, but kind of go that route. It makes a lot of sense when you really break it down because there's financial things to take into consideration. There's the fact that Kenny Pickett was playing with Matt Canada as his offensive coordinator. I mean, was that really fair to the quarterback to be so loyal to that scheme that was just so archaic? We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to trade him though, right? Somebody. I mean, is it going to take an owner just stepping in and being like, "Sign me up for these plays, these highlights"?
I'd be surprised if he wasn't traded. But again, you need to have some form of demand. Ideally, you want 2 teams calling you up with something on the table, and then you can play that game if you're Ryan Poles with one team out there, it's either take it or leave it in some instances, and that's where it gets to be a game of poker that you have to be confident in playing. The one thing I do really appreciate about Ryan Poles is he has a very calm confidence in the way he's doing things. Now he's only 2 years into his regime. We have no results to say that he's going to be a general manager that can turn this team into a championship contender like they haven't been in a long, long time. But he certainly feels confident in his plan and the way they go about the process of getting to decisions. This is the biggest decision you will ever have to make in your professional life this offseason. Who's going to run your team for this next leg, and this will be career defining. And then, look, like I lived 2017, the Trubisky Mahomes draft, lived it, up close and personal. When you talk about the stakes of this league, the Kansas City Chiefs are locked in as the best team in football until further notice. The Chicago Bears are scrambling to try to get in the playoffs 2 years in a row, right? Like get in the playoffs at all, not even 2 years in a row. It's just these are the types of decisions that define careers. They change the direction of your franchise for a decade or longer, and you better be very cognizant every single day of what's at stake when you're going through the process of getting to that decision.
You wrote the signature story on how the Chicago Bears came to the place to draft Mitch Trubisky too. I mean, they put in a lot of work. From what I remember in your story then, I mean, it was like incognito stuff. Like they were paranoid to the upteenth degree that anybody would find out that they liked this quarterback, North Carolina. So you fast forward to today, who knows who Ryan Poles loves in this class? He can have anybody he wants. I think we're all
that's
under
the greatest part is like you can have anyone you want, right? And they had that luxury to some extent in 2017. What happened with the previous regime with Ryan Pace as the general manager is they convinced themselves that it was Mitch Trubisky and Mitch Trubisky only. And so what that did is not only lure them to draft Mitch Trubisky, but they traded up, if you remember, from number 3 to number 2 because you made a decision internally in your building that you couldn't live with Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson if someone else came to get Mitch Trubisky at number 2. That's a decision that you made, right? And in retrospect, you go, what? The Bears had Patrick Mahomes rated in their top cloud. He was on there, a group of 6 or 7 players there. They believed in him. They thought he was a really good player. They just felt like Mitch was a less risky selection. You look back on that 7 years later and you go, wrong move, right? And what did it mean? Look at the direction of those franchises and then understand what it means in this league.
Scared money, as a wise man once said, don't make no money. So Caleb Williams, I mean, that you look at this class, I mean, that's the player that you can't take your eyes off of, and he's accurate, right? And he's making tough throws downfield. But all those strengths that Justin Fields have, I mean, those are legitimate concerns with Caleb. How is he going to handle them?
Right.
If things go south mentally, what place is he going to be in? I mean, we'll be at his press conference soon, Friday, and he'll get asked about painting obscenities on his fingernails and crying in mom's arms and all this other stuff. And it's a lot of people probably frown upon those questions, but those are fair questions to have when you're going into the Chicago market. Like, how is he going to handle this?
You're betting your career on it, right? Yeah. You're betting your livelihood, your professional livelihood on how he handles that. Caleb Williams just turned 22 in November. So there's an interesting part of this evaluation where you have to say, okay, who is he now? And who do we forecast him to be when he's 25 or 26? You and I both know that our 22-year-old selves were nothing like our 32-year-old selves, right? A maturation process happens. And so some of the questions you might have about a 22-year-old will clear up by the time they're 25 or 26. You've got to make an educated guess on that stuff. With Caleb Williams, it is the emotional maturity. I hear that all over the league from people that are evaluating this class right now on like, how can you be the guy who is the one who resets everything after a loss, after a 2-game losing streak? Guys are going to come look to you to be the charging station to plug into. And as I said on the radio in Chicago earlier this morning, guys don't go look to plug into quarterbacks who are laying on the couch cuddling with their dog. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so that's part of this. And you got to feel out, can Caleb Williams channel his emotions in the right directions? Can he use his passion, which is a strength of his, for good? Can he be that guy that grows into that leader that guys look to and becomes the engine of winning, and that's what the ultimate goal is. There's a huge question here on who he is emotionally and how he's going to grow as he gets into the league. And then you just have to understand that this is a huge market. It's a success-starved city that's gone 104 seasons now without high-level quarterback play. And they're starved.
Easy on Eric Kramer.
Eric Kramer still holds the single-season franchise record for passing yards. By the way, everyone, it's below 4,000 yards. The only team in the NFL that's never had a 4,000 yard passer or a 30-yard or 30 touchdown passer in a single season. It's mind blowing. That's good news for Caleb
Jordan Love went
Williams.
over 4,000.
Right, right. Justin Fields went over 2,000 on Christmas Eve this year, right? Like, so that's what you're dealing with. And so what you have now is a situation where, to Caleb Williams' benefit, the bar to be successful in Chicago is very low. I've told people, go win, you know, a handful of games the next 3 years, get the Bears in the playoffs twice, and you'll be the best quarterback they've had in the last 30 years, right? Like, just get there. Let's not get carried away with the Mahomes comparisons and ask him to win 3 Super Bowls the minute he steps foot in the door. Ask him to become a winning quarterback that puts you in the mix to be in the playoffs year after year after year. You've lived it in 2 different markets, right? Like, you were in Green Bay. You saw what Aaron Rodgers did to put that team in the playoffs year after year after year. Josh Allen, great comp for Caleb Williams. He walked into a franchise that had been success starved as well for a quarter century, right? Hadn't won a playoff game since the late 90s, right? When he got there, and now they're in the playoffs 5 years in a row, and he's got them in the Super Bowl hunt, albeit running into the Kansas City Chiefs every year, who they traded the pick to draft Mahomes with. So that's a whole different story. But right, like, there's a lot here, and I think talent wise, Caleb Williams has everything you want. Now you got to answer all these questions about the maturity.
And I think that was a strength for Josh Allen too. They knew that this was somebody that was writing letters to colleges, begging for an opportunity, nothing handed to him. So you don't know about Caleb Williams. So I guess you find out because I mean then there's that Trubisky element of he lost his confidence
Yeah.
at one point. You know, I mean, it couldn't get it back.
The way I phrased it in 2019, when it was clear that they had hit a wall, was that Mitch struggled with struggling. You know, it's one thing to struggle, it's another thing to struggle when struggling. You know, it can never break out of that cycle of feeling frustrated and then pressing and then, you know, using those urges to press and failing and getting more frustrated. It just becomes this vicious cycle that you can't spin out of.
And they didn't do him any favors.
And
Obviously.
and right, like, and so, you know, that's the other part of this is the Bears decided to re-up with Matt Eberflus, right? He's going to be your head coach in 2024, defensive minded coach who brought in a whole new offensive staff for the most part. And now you have to hope that you're not rebooting with your offensive coaching staff after the first year of a rookie quarterback. They did it with Justin. They did it with Mitch. That doesn't do well for quarterback development when after their rookie season, you're saying, oh, by the way, here, let me introduce you to a whole new set of quarterback or coaches and a whole new offensive system. You want to have continuity, right?
And it's been like that throughout the entire history of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Like we talk about all the time. In terms of GM, coach, quarterback being aligned, they're never aligned.
Right.
Ever.
Right. And they had an opportunity here, and then the opportunity they chose was to stay with Matt Eberflus as their coach, most likely draft a quarterback, and then you just have to cross your fingers, hope and pray that it all works out. Look, like, it's fascinating. I mean, this is a great time to cover the Chicago Bears because the whole world is curious, to see what decision they make and then where it goes from there. Because there's a chance that we're sitting here 5 years from now and going, what a run that they're in the middle of, right? What a window of opportunity they've opened. That's the one thing I say about Caleb Williams. You know, the Bears seemingly are always trying to squeeze through a window of opportunity that's rapidly closing. You get that quarterback, and that's like one of those steel rods that you just prop the window open with and say, okay, let's see how often we can get through this one.
That's a great analogy because I feel like the Jay Cutler era, it was so much of that. Like, maybe he can stop the Packers on 4th and 8 and sneak. Oh, wait a minute, there he goes, Chris Connie. What do you do?
And what happened? We went through 8 seasons of Jay Cutler, and he wound up with a record that was 500, like literally 500 over 8 seasons, and that was the great hope. And Jay's been the best quarterback they've had since Sid Luckman, you know. So that's where we are, and like, you know, I always laugh because people in Green Bay have had 30 years of not worrying about anything, and you're like, you should come live in the shoes of Chicago for a couple seasons and just feel that torment and that torture. We'll see where it goes.
The roster's pretty damn good. I mean,
right now,
Bob's talked about it, like even as early as like late November-ish, I want to say, early December. He's right. Like, this is a really good roster. I mean, There's pieces.
The defense got better. They made the trade for Montez Sweat at the trade deadline last year and got instantly better on defense. That guy's a multiplier. He gives you pass rush that then helps your secondary produce. All of a sudden, the Bears finished the year as a top-ranked run defense, top 5 in takeaways. I think they may have led the league in interceptions, or at least top 3. all of a sudden you've got a defense that's coming together. You've got an offense now where DJ Moore is an undisputed number one receiver who can thrive with any quarterback he's played with. You go down the list of the guys that DJ Moore has been forced to catch footballs from and say, okay, this guy produces with anyone. And then you've got Cole Kmet at tight end, and now you've got an offensive line with Darnell Wright, first round pick from last year. A chance, by the way, the Bears are picking ninth also, not just first. You could add another
Yeah.
bookend top tier offensive tackle to support your quarterback. So, look, like there's a lot to like. And that's when Ryan Poles talks about the infrastructure to set a young quarterback up for success. He feels like he's built the roster in a way that a lot of quarterbacks taken number one overall don't get to inherit a team that is built to succeed a little bit, that can take some of the pressure off that young guy. Obviously, you look at CJ Stroud and what he did last year in reviving the Houston Texans. We went to sat here a year ago and gone like, oh boy, the Houston Texans are going to be the story of the 2023 season. They were, and they got it right at quarterback, and they got it right at surrounding that quarterback, and they found that springboard that everyone's seeking. You got to try to use them as an example and figure out what that model was, and then tailor it to you to try to get the same results.
Well, if anybody out there wants to know what in the hell is going on with the Bears, Dan Wiederer here with the Chicago Tribune, your podcast.
Take the North podcast. You can follow that podcast at Twitter at Take the North Pod, at Take the North Pod. Yeah, we do about 2 or 3 episodes a week, always 3 in season, and it's a fascinating time to distribute Bears news because there's a lot of it, and there's a little bit of gossip out there these days too. I don't know if you've heard it here at the Combine. There's rumors floating around, speculation.
I'm trying to think of the Game of Thrones analogy for Take the North, like who the Bears have been, who they could be.
So I'm not a Game of Thrones guy. You're gonna have to bail me out on that.
Okay.
The name of the pod.
Well, they want to be Johnson.
The name of the pod comes from Ryan Poles' introductory press conference when he promised that the Bears were going to take the North and never give it back. Here we are. We're still trying to take the North. And then the second part is never giving it back, but you got to get it first. And right now, the Detroit Lions have it.
It's very true. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for watching. All NFL Combine coverage, go along, TD.com, and, of course, the Chicago Tribune, the damn stuff. Catch you next time.